Chapter 14. When Emily entered Harper's limo and sat next to him, he placed his hand over hers, and she felt the tingle of warmth and arousal, and she knew she had made the right decision. When Harper touched her hand, he knew he wanted and needed this woman, and she would bear him children. He called Michael from his limo. "Michael, meet me at Judge Aaron's home in 15 minutes. For heaven's sake, it's 11:30. By the time I get there, it'll be midnight. My wife will think I have a mistress. Tell her I'll fire you if you aren't there. That should get her attention. You will lose everything if you don't come." "You don't sound like yourself, Harper," Michael said. "I'm not. I'm in love and I'm getting married." He looked to Emily. Emily smiled back, but in the back of her mind was the question about her being a virgin. Did he forget about that? Did he even know? He had explicitly said to Michael that he didn't want a virgin. When Harper and Emily were leaving the judge's library, and they were officially Mr. and Mrs. Harper Samsa, Michael rang the bell, and the judge's wife opened the door with a confused look and a sour face. Michael apologized for the time and entered the judge's home. "I got here as soon as I could," Michael said, breathless, his shirt untucked on one side. He put the papers he held in one hand under his arms and tucked his shirt into his pants before he raced to Harper, standing holding Emily's hand. Harper couldn't tear his eyes away from Emily. Handing Harper the documents and looking at Emily, Michael reached inside his coat pocket and put on his reading glasses. He watched at Emily. "Emily, how are you doing? You made a good choice with Harper," he said, turning to offer his hand to both of them. "I knew once you two got together, you wouldn't let a little thing like her being a virgin keep the two of you apart." "She's what? You're what?" His eyes shot to Emily. His mouth opened and he huffed through his teeth. She shook her head yes. "Keep those papers." "I won't need them," he said to Michael. His warm smile vanished, and to take its place a glum, cold look. "What's wrong, Harper?" Michael called out as Harper took Emily's hand and rushed out the door and into his limo. "Take me home," he said to his driver. "What's wrong?" Emily questioned. She watched as his expression of warmth turned to remoteness. He dropped her hand and moved away, leaving a gap between them. "Nothing," Harper said, and turned away from her. "Is it because I'm a virgin? I thought you knew this and it didn't matter to you," her voice pleading for him to reconsider. "I didn't know," Harper said, his voice low. "I'll make arrangements to have the wedding annulled." Emily watched as his expression of love passed from his handsome face to a feeling of disgust. "But what about the promises you made to me?" "They will all be honored. All except honoring your marriage to me. I didn't want this, you wanted it, remember?" "I remember, and now I don't want it, and I can't discuss why I want an annulment. The minute you discovered that I was a virgin, you became cold. What do you want me to do, find someone to take my virginity?" He turned with a raised eyebrow. "That may help. What about you? Why can't you do it?" "I just can't." "Then why did you want to marry me? What about Elizabeth? She wasn't a virgin, yet you called off your engagement to her. Do you like to break women's hearts? Is that what's wrong with you? You just wanted to break my heart. My heart has been broken too many times to care about another broken heart. You can have your revenge on all, woman." "I agree. I want the annulment as soon as possible." And Emily turned away from Harper. Their backs to each other. When the car stopped, Emily bolted from the car. Harper realized how much he had changed. He would have given anything to have a woman like Emily, but now that he had become a werewolf, it wouldn't be possible. How could he expect her to understand? He was afraid he would hurt her just by placing his large sheath into her small opening. He didn't know if he could get the tip in without tearing her apart. What a fucked up life he had been thrust into. He wasn't a man, and he wasn't a werewolf, but he was something in between. That wolf part of him didn't care. It had to have her tonight. When he stepped out of the limo, he looked up, raised his head, and he needed to howl. But he couldn't, because this was the middle of San Francisco, and there were no wolves, and he had to hide his secret from people and the world. Everyone was sleeping. Emily's room was nearby. He wanted to explain to her, but he couldn't. He needed to mate, but he resisted the urge, and then the call grew greater, and instead of climbing the stairs up to his bedroom, he walked past the kitchen, down the hall, and to the right. He opened the door to Emily's room, but she wasn't there. Harper stood wondering where she had gone. He turned to walk to his room, and he heard her. She was taking a bath. He heard her footsteps when she stepped out of the shower and reached for a towel, and then he listened to each footstep when she opened the door and faced him. "What do you want now?" "I have nothing you would want." Emily watched at his face change. She watched as his eyes turned from blue to gold. He stepped closer to her without a word and reached and snatched her towel off her body. "Is that what's wrong with you? You just want to look at me, but never touch me?" "I want to do more than look at you." His tongue swiped across his dry lips. His breathing became loud, and he heard his own heartbeat. He wanted Emily. He needed her tonight, and he would give her what she wanted. She wanted to be his wife. She no longer wanted to be a virgin. Well, he would indulge her. She wanted him to take her virginity, and he would. Now, Harper would present her with the harsh reality of being a werewolf's mate. The harsh reality of having a penis which couldn't fit into a virgin's opening. All this was new to him. Where would he start? Could he begin by claiming her? Bend her over the bed and show her what kind of animal she had married? As his mind went through different scenarios of how to make love to her, he wasn't expecting what she said. "I don't want you anymore. You are cruel, and I don't want to be with a cruel man who carries secrets. I know you have secrets. I thought you could overlook me being a virgin, and I would overlook your secrets, and we could find respect and love for each other." Emily had expressed that so eloquent. Harper couldn't have said it better, but now it's over, and he didn't want it to be over. He had to have her tonight. Striding over to her, he leaned his head to the side and smiled. "Can we start again? Can this be our honeymoon? Let me show you how much I want you." It was the wolf in him that showed in the slyness of his words. The man in him would never behave so cunning. "I know how much you want me. You want someone who can satisfy your sick fantasies, and a virgin can't do that for you. What do you want to do? Tie me up." She was just repeating what Stanley had said. These weren't her feelings, but she didn't understand, and Harper didn't make it better for her by rejecting her and embarrassing her in front of her friends. She thought she had married a gentleman. She wanted her first man to be understanding and gentle, but that is the stuff of fairy tales, and this was a horror story in the making for both of them. He chuckled. Where did she get the notion that he wanted to tie her up? She had been so quiet and unassuming when he first met her. She hadn't changed except to try to be the person she thought Harper wanted. He laughed at her. "Why are you laughing?" Emily said. "Because this isn't you." "How do you know who I am? You didn't spend 1 minute with me before you asked to marry me, and a minute before you dumped me." "Well, I don't know who you are." "Quiet?" Harper reached for Emily and brought her to him. His manhood pulsed at the feeling of her naked body. He held her warm face with his large, fiery hands, and she shuddered with passion at the feel of him even as he stood there fully clothed. Never had she felt like this before. Harper's tongue coursed through her open mouth, and she closed her mouth, taking it in her warm lips, and he kissed her, and the scent she gave off, he knew she wanted him and he wanted her. He touched her hard breasts as her nipples became stiff through his fingers. He picked her up and placed her in the bed. She glanced up at him. "You can't have me. Not until I'm no longer a virgin. I will give you what you want. Go. Leave me. If you want to get a divorce, then I will agree. If you don't, then I will agree to that." "But I want you now," Harper said, his voice moaning in desperation. "I'm a virgin, and you made me feel as if there was something wrong with me." "There is something wrong with me, Emily. You don't understand." "Tell me what it is." She watched as his eyes glowed with a golden sheen. "I can't," he said, leaning over her with desire dripping. When I've lost my virginity, I'll call you. You can make up your mind if you want to stay married to me. But tonight I don't want you." Harper locked gazes with Emily. He stood, and with a quick turn he left the room and left her in bed, wondering why she would say something like that to a man she has wanted and desired her entire life. She had wanted a man like him, and now she has turned him away. "What the fuck is wrong with me?" she thought. When Harper rushed from her room, he ran outside, raised his face and gave a somber howl. He let out a mating howl. Not from a wolf who had found a mate, but one who needed a mate. "I should tell her that I'm a werewolf," he murmured. But he didn't, and he climbed into his truck and took off east to go to the only place he felt comfortable. Chapter 15. Harper had been driving for 2 hours east to Nevada. Maybe he would find what he wanted among the species more like himself. He had forgotten about his home and the new structures. He had architect design plans for his town. That would be his next project. That could keep him busy, and he wouldn't have time to think about how much he wanted Emily and how much he wanted to fuck. The only time he thought about his home was when he drove up to it. The land had looked barren in one particular spot, but now it had the skeleton of a beautiful, spacious home. He thought he would be returning there with a woman he could mate with and spend his life with. He sat in his truck and thought, "I guess I will have to look somewhere else. Emily doesn't want me. I can't blame her," he murmured. Hopping out of the truck, he met the foreman. "It's good to see you, Mr. Samsa. You said that you wanted this home completed soon, and you didn't care how many men we used. As you can see," he said, walking around to the house, which looked like it would take no more than 2 days, "we're just about finished and the carpenters have built your bed." "Thank you," Harper said, staring at his home. "Everyone here would like to thank you for the opportunity to work." "We have more work to do," Harper said to the foreman. "You and your men have to build me a town with a hospital, a school and stores. I have designated where the town will stand, and I'm going to need one more hospital here. Do you have the plans?" "I have everything." "Then let me get out of your way." Harper walked back to his truck and drove around and headed west to the Rusty Nail. He needed a drink. When he reached there, it was getting dark. He strode into the bar. Looking around, no one appeared to be in there except Angela. She looked up. "Oh, Harper, I'm glad to see you. Why is it so empty in here? Where is everyone?" A sheriff from Madison County, about a mile from here, came in and arrested all the male shifters in the bar. He said they found a dead woman, and everyone would be held until they found out who it was. They're always picking on the shifters. We usually keep our business within our pack. They have no reason to round up shifters. The shifters have rights, Harper said as Angela handed him a bottle of beer. He popped the cap with his thumb and drank it all. "We have no rights. This is a closed society. Very few humans know we exist. The sheriff wants to keep it that way. When something happens, it's usually because some human has come to town. We have a small population of humans in this area. The shifters make up the majority of the population, and if women go missing or someone disappears, they herd all the werewolf shifters into town until they can frame one. Then they send the shifter off somewhere, and we never know what happens to him again." Angela shrugged and continued scrubbing the bar. "What about the war females?" "They retreat into the forest until everything is over. Living the best way they can. Close up this place and let's go into town." Angela cut the lights and walked out with Harper. It took her only a few minutes before they bounded into the car and headed north to the local sheriff's office. The town had one street and it was blacktopped. One gas station sat near one rectangular building, and to the side sat a building with bars that said jail. And in that jail sat 12 werewolves. Some pacing and the others howling and gnawing at the bars as if they thought it would do any good. The only thing that happened was they lost teeth. Parking the truck, he jumped out, and Angela trotted over to the jail to stand outside and talk to Nero. Harper glanced at the werewolves sitting inside a cage-like room and thought that it could be him, and although he didn't care for most of them, he had to help them because now they were all he had that resembled his species and family. Opening the door, he looked at the man behind the desk watching a football game. The man looked up. "Who are you?" "I'm Harper Samsa." The man stood and walked from around his desk and rubbed his hand on his pants and then held out his hand. "I'm Sheriff Jimmy Hugh. And I've heard of you. You bought all this land around here. You plan on giving jobs to everyone in the area. You know we have a small town, and we appreciate a man such as yourself. Well, Mr. Hugh, I understand you have a lot of my men in your jail. These aren't men. They're—" He stopped short of saying they were werewolves. He couldn't recognize Harper as being one of them. "What are they?" "They aren't animals where you have to put them in a cage." "Well, we found a body. I mean a skeleton of a woman, and I have to keep them until we find out who it is and how long she's been dead." "And just how long is that going to take?" "Maybe 6 months. Maybe a year." The sheriff shot Harper a disgusting smile. His teeth yellow from tobacco stains and little or no brushing. "Do you have the resources to feed those men for that long?" "Well, if they die or start to eat each other, then my problem is solved." He shot another smile that made Harper uneasy. "You will have another problem because I will hold you responsible for murdering these men." "Like I said, these aren't men." "Then what are they?" "I know this may sound strange since you're not from here, but since you're one of us men, you need to know that they're werewolves," the sheriff said, whispering. He waited for Harper to laugh. "And what do you think I am?" "A man, of course. No werewolf has the money you have, so I assume you're a man." "Then you have made another wrong assumption. I am like these men, and I want you to release them now." "I can't do that." "You're violating their rights." "They don't have any rights here." Harper looked around. "This isn't a town. I'm building a town. Now, if you want to remain on as sheriff, and if you do your job and find out who killed that woman, then I will consider making you the head of my police department. I will hire as many men as you can bring in here. With one stipulation, that you have them sign a paper that they will never tell anyone that this town has werewolves, and that I am a werewolf." "If they tell, then what?" "They will no longer be able to stay in this town or any other. Do you understand me?" Harper's eyes blazed red and he locked them on the sheriff. "Yes, sir, Mr. Samsa. I'll let those men go as soon as," and he raised his head and looked at the door. The door opened and Angela walked in. Harper saw the look on the sheriff's face. He had the hots for Angela, and there appeared to be a motive for taking Nero in with the rest of the group of werewolves. "What are you doing here, Angela? You know, once I pick up Nero and his pack, I keep them." There was panic on Angela's face. Her eyes darkened and she growled at him. "Don't worry. We're good. I'm letting Nero and the others out in a few. Go on back to the Rusty Nail. He'll be there shortly." "Are you telling me the truth?" "Would I lie to you, Angela? You know you and I are good." His voice softened when he spoke those words. "Just ask Mr. Samsa." He looked to Harper to ease the way with Angela. "Go back to the bar. I'll take care of everything, Angela. The pack will want to get a drink and eat. Do you have fresh meat?" She shook her head yes, but she never took her eyes off of the sheriff. Harper saw the signs of jealousy in the sheriff, and he had brought Nero and his pack in because he wanted some time with Angela. Harper even doubted that there was a missing and dead woman. The werewolves he knew wouldn't kill a woman. They were interested in sex, and from all the females and the local humans running around, they could have all the sex they wanted. Harper walked Angela to the door and stood outside with her. She glanced up at him. "There is one thing I forgot to tell you about your change," Angela said. "What is it?" "You have 3 more days before the full moon." "I know that." "Well," she paused. "You have to mate with your selected female, or the next female you mate with will be yours forever, whether you want her or not. She will be devoted to you, and may even harm another female of your choosing." "Why didn't you tell me that earlier?" "I'm married. I will have to get back to Emily. I have so much to do before then," he murmured. "Wait for us in the truck." I don't want to travel with Nero's pack until I speak to him. And from now on I think it's best that you remain loyal to Nero. It almost cost him his life." "What do you mean?" "Don't tell me you haven't been with that sheriff. I saw how you were looking at him and he was watching you. You've been intimate with him. If you don't put a stop to that, he will eventually kill Nero. Please don't say anything to Nero." "I would never do that. Now get in the truck and wait for me. I need to stay here to make sure that the sheriff keeps to his bargain."